found The Naked Truth. Lively discussions about business, marketing, and personal development for small business owners. No hype, just help.
It's the last week of the month, isn't it? Maybe no, maybe there's another one.
It is. I didn't even think of that. Stuff goes too fast. Happy Monday, by the way.
Happy Monday. Dude, June disappeared. Like completely disappeared.
Yeah. Seriously.
Right?
Crazy.
It has nothing to do with having kids or not. Just disappeared. So before we dive into all the stuff that is happening this week, let us remind you that you can win. All you have to do is comment, engage, hop on in, talk to us right here. If you want to have a conversation, be thenakedtruth.com/live. You can come on in and say hi and talk about Monday and how June disappeared and all the other awesome things that we'll be talking about today, which are, the first one is Virginia. There's a pandemic in Virginia.
No, that's fun. This is culture clash. So there's a famous movie, Miracle on 32nd Street, 42nd Street. It's an old famous Christmas movie where they say to the little girl's name is Virginia, and they say, "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus," because she's wondering if Santa Claus is real or not. So that was my little cultural illusion. I was saying, "Yes, Virginia, there is a pandemic," because we've gotten to this point where people are starting. It's one of the most frustrating things about human beings is our attention spans are so short. And people are acting like the pandemic is just basically over because of the way states are phasing things back in.
Yep.
And so you just massive amounts of people again running around, no masks, no distancing, no. I get that there's misinformation to some extent and varying opinions. I get it's confusing. It frustrates me as well. But to simply act like there is no pandemic anymore is not going to help us.
But you know what's interesting about that one? Because today I was just reading, I can't remember who on Facebook, and I actually pinned the post so I can remember and go back to it. There's a lot of conversations that are happening around the masks, right? And so the challenge is which mask, right? And so they're saying the mask with the filter, it's actually not helping. If you're sick and you put a mask on, because the mask only filters what comes out, when you breathe out, you're breathing out all the viruses. So you're not actually helping anybody. It's not protecting you or anyone around. The other one that is completely sterile, it's only for sterile environments. So it doesn't help in unsterile environments. And the one with the cloth, that's a challenge because that traps the viruses inside.
I know. I get it. I get that there's no. So again, this is another thing about human beings who I love human beings in so many ways, but they also drive me crazy. What we have is we have a need for certainty, right? We have this need where we want to know that things are a certain way. And if we can't get that, we get frustrated and we get angry. And this is a great example of that is there is no perfect answer to this problem, right? There's a bunch of variables. There's no okay, I get that. I get that that's frustrating. But that doesn't mean just run around and act like there's not a pandemic happening. The article that I linked you to, 183,000 people got reported cases yesterday alone. On Sunday, the reported number was 183,000.
Yep.
Now, again, I know there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to be like, yeah, Paul, but most of those people aren't going to die. That's not the point.
Why is it not
I know
the
that
point?
most of those people aren't going to die. But
That's a huge number.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? So I'm going to play the devil advocate here for a second. If they're not dying, right, they got a disease and they build body immunity, then what is the risk and what is the problem with getting the COVID?
Because while 183,000 people aren't going to die, there are going to be people that are going to die. Yeah. We still have, I think, this is, again, one of the bigger themes that it makes me so sad inside that it doesn't I haven't heard anyone talk about it this way openly. Mm-hmm. Why are we not willing to talk more often about our responsibility to one another as a community? Like, if you can't see the way that and I'm doing this to be funny, but also like if you can't see the little trickle effect of how if you are careless and you get infected because you're careless, and then because you're being careless, your carelessness could lead to someone else getting infected, and that could make them die. Now, if I got sick and I was careless and I gave it to, like there was that article last week about the women who went out and they went out for one night and 15 of them all got it, right? So then you go, okay, so if none of the 15 of them die, awesome, I'm so glad. But what if then what if you break it out and you do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
Right.
And what if just because they went out and had one night of carelessness, someone dies who wouldn't have died otherwise? Like, to me, that's...
So there's
look, people die. That's the way it is. Like,
so there's an interesting argument, right? So like one of the conversations that I saw on Facebook was like, me and my friend got COVID. This guy was writing, right? Me and my friend got COVID because I worry about my health. I didn't even feel it, and he ended up in the hospital. And so his argument is like, why are we focusing on a vaccine and not yoga, meditation, massage, diet, health, and all that stuff, right? So in that way of thinking, the responsibility is on you. I'm responsible for my well-being. I need to make sure that my immune system is high, that I'm eating well, that I'm sleeping, that I'm exercising. It's not your responsibility, Paul Ramsey, to make sure that I don't get sick, right? So
no, it is though. That's you can't make them completely mutually exclusive. Like if you knew you had the measles because it shows up, right? Like, you don't just go, it's up to other people to have a healthy immune system, I'm going to run all around. Like, you go, no, I have the measles, I should quarantine myself. Like, there are steps that we should take there. And this is the bigger, again, the theme is like in all of these things, like when people are getting mad about all this, like who's telling me where I can go and what I can do. Like, I get that there's a valid point there. I'm not saying it isn't valid to have that discussion, but why don't we spend as much energy talking about our responsibility toward one another more often? That's all I feel like, what all I hear, and again, maybe this is me getting duped by the media. All I hear over and over again is my rights, my rights, my rights. Yeah, what about your responsibilities?
Yeah.
Like, we live in a society.
Yeah.
Like, you don't
but
live in a vacuum.
America is not built on socialism. America is built on capitalism. Me, mine. It's not share and support and.
But I don't. Again, this is where, see what happens though. When we start to have this conversation, immediately it goes to all the political activator
Not
terms.
necessarily, but that's the mindset, right? That the mindset.
But you just did it. So again, you said socialism versus capitalism. What I'm talking about is humanism. Like, why don't we?
Because
we have to, if we want to fix some of these issues that are going on, if we want to have meaningful change, we have to stop having conversations that are always reduced to political ideologies and policy like, yes, that stuff matters, but we have to stop going there first, and let's start having conversations about how human beings can help one another or not, right? Like, this is so again, what it all comes back to, because we have other things to talk about, is I just would hope that people would just be more thoughtful. Like, there is still a pandemic going on, and that affects everyone.
Yeah. I agree with you. And that thoughtfulness, right? The reason why I was saying socialism, capitalism, it's not in the culture. It's not in the American culture. It would be nice if it were. It's not. So, maybe this pandemic will get there. Who knows? But it's very much me culture. When workers can live anywhere, many ask, why do I live here?
You know what I love about this one is you and I talked about this over a month ago, right? And like I'm like, okay, we're our heads are most of the time in the right place. Like, we were talking about this, like, there are going to be long-standing cultural implications of this pandemic, like people starting to go. And you know what? Before I saw this article, I was having a talk with a friend who is older than me, and he was talking about how his son lives in New York City, and he's like, He's like, you know, my son has a really good job working for some big name company. And he goes, but they're all working from home now. So he's sort of like, well, why should I live in New York City if I don't even go to work anymore? And the rest of the things in the city aren't available to me. It used to be part of a lifestyle choice, right? He's like, I can't go to the theater. I can't go to the, you know, the whatever, all the cool. He's like, so why am I paying like crazy high rent to live in a city that I can't enjoy? There's got to be a lot of people.
But you know what's interesting about that one? So that's very short-sighted, right? I can't enjoy it now. New York City is entering phase 2 of opening, right? So all the stuff that you like will come back in one form or another. So do you bail? So if you bail now, can you come back to the stuff that you like later?
You can, right? And I think the part of it is he's like, it wasn't just, I don't just live in the city to have access to these things. It's also to be closer to work.
Right.
So it's how multiple variables intersect. If work doesn't phase fully back, right? Which we've seen time and time again, there are people are seriously considering not doing that, right? So if you don't need to be close to work, you go, why not live outside the city, save the cost, and just run in and visit the city when you want to? Like, right? Like,
they were actually, so they were talking about phase 2 of New York City is starting right now. And New Yorkers, most of them use public transportation because they don't drive. But now public transportation is not as easy or safe because it's crowded. So how will that affect them coming back to work? So just because they can doesn't mean they would. And I believe like 10 to 20% are now commuting back to work. And some, you know, bosses want to see their employees in cubicles. Some of them going like, why do I need the overhead? Everybody work from home.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's very interesting. And on that, everybody work from home. Remember we talked about Microsoft replacing the journalists with AI?
Yep.
And now they are replacing them with the farm.
Which this is, again, because my family has, you know, my mom and my dad, their retirement gig was farming, right? Like, and so I've been watching this stuff for years now, and I've seen it. It was already happening, right?
Yeah.
And what's happening now is it's interesting. It's accelerating dramatically. Like, they were already working on robots that could pull weeds so that they didn't have to pay a person to do it. But now the first thing that made it accelerate was when President Trump came in and really cracked down on illegal immigration. There was a marked reduction in migrant workers who had come over the border illegally. They couldn't find workers to do that work, right? So that was the first thing that made farms go, all right, we need robots. And they started asking, and that was accelerating the technology. Now the pandemic is making it click up another gear again, because having them all around each other, whether they're illegal or legal, doesn't matter. It's put the way that they have to do it, be around each other. So now they're looking at having robots for this stuff. And you go, again, when you get to a point where you build a robot that can do this, you're not going to go, nah, let's go back to the
I know. But you know what? It's I think it's fantastic. I think it's really, really great because we were not created, like I completely agree with Tom Chi and Michael Vassar. We're not created to pull up weeds. We're not an assembly line, right? If robots can do this 24/7, then why do we have to? I agree. I like where this is going.
But here's what happens, Ifat. I agree with you there. And then I just go, okay, but this is what always happens. Our technology advances, and then we don't have meaningful discussions about how to address the cultural implications of it. So if you don't have all those people working that way, what do you help them do instead so they can have a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives?
Right. And so now you're moving from like, I have to go and work the fields because that's my job, to I enjoy working the fields because it gives me meaning. So I have my own garden and I take care of kids and I art and I paint. And that's where the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance book comes in. Right? I love it. Because when you don't have to do something, right? When you don't have to go to college for a degree, you go to college for education because you really want to learn and you really want to improve. And I hope that this is where we're going to go, right? So now, if your basic needs are covered, you're not worried about food, shelter, health, right? You got that covered. You don't have to work 8 hours a day. What do? You train your kids, you teach them, you spend time with them, you read, you listen to music, you go dancing, you learn martial arts. Like there's so many things to do. You go on hikes, you wade in the water, which we didn't do because it was raining. But but right, you do the things that fill you up. And I'm sorry, but like systematically working the fields is not fulfilling to anyone, even if they're doing it right now.
Right. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard work.
It is.
It's not like there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's the other article that I didn't bring up, but someone shared over the weekend is, again, someone had posted on Facebook and said, why is it that these meatpacking facilities keep becoming problematic COVID spots? And it's like, because they literally have people stand shoulder to shoulder, and they've built a system in which people stand shoulder to shoulder, and all you do is make the same exact cut on a pig or a chicken or a beef as it goes by. You just do this, 20,000 times a day. You know what I mean? Like before my dad was into farming, my dad worked in the meat industry, and he went and toured a chicken factory. And he said, he was telling me about, he said in the morning when the shift starts, an individual worker has 3,000 chickens go past them per hour.
Holy shit.
That's how, And then they're doing 3,000 an hour. And then because they've studied it all, they know the worker gets fatigued. They slowly dial back the speed as the day goes on, so that there aren't injuries and accidents, right? And as the day goes on, it gets slower. But he said that it slows down to as low as 2,000 chickens an hour.
That's crazy. That always reminds me of that image with the guy with just one arm muscled and the other one, the other half of the body is like weak because you're only using this one. But but is that good for your well-being? Oh, I have to go to work.
Yeah, right?
That's
it's not,
insane.
there's no one, I have a hard time believing there's people that are happy going, I'm going to go stand on the line and just make that a single cut, 20,000 times a day.
And it's not a high paying job. So you're basically just covering your needs. So if you replace that with basic income and now you have something more fulfilling, I really think we're going to have a happier, healthier society if we switch to, working half a day in stuff that we really like. What a concept. So what a concept. Apple is moving online. Apple conference is moving online.
The tech company finally decided to use technology for their...
Well, which is, funny. I think Google did the same thing, didn't they? Like a few months ago. I think they did the same thing where it's like, well, we have to go online. It's funny. It's interesting. I think for Apple, it's actually a little bit of a challenge because they're such a cult. So for them to come in going like, Apple, and now we don't have Apple, we're just at home going like,
How much buzz can you generate without having all of those industry leaders in the room and getting them super, super fired up? And then they go out and evangelize for you, right? Can you get that same effect just doing this,
Yeah. So it'll be very
question.
interesting to see how they run that conference because, Apple is really diehard Apple, right?
I wonder if it will, again, things that we already have but get accelerated. I wonder if they'll do it this year and then go, you know what? Next year we need to do it as augmented to make people feel even more like they're there in person.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I remember years ago when I was in college, I went to see, was it Bruce Springsteen or Sting? I think either one of them in a concert, and they were not there. It was a hologram. And but that was years ago, right? And so it's really interesting. Like when you go to a concert, do you go to listen to the music or do you go for the environment, and the whole concert feeling where you're sitting on a blanket and you're dancing with your friends and stuff like that, right? So, because if you're not going for the music specifically, then why not have it as a hologram, right? You're not really interacting with the singer and stuff like that, and they can be at home going like whatever.
Yeah.
So it's it's really it's kind of like like you're watching those sci-fi movies and you're going like, is this the future I want to go into?
It is. It's interesting.
It's interesting. Speaking of a future, the kids. I love the kids of this, this generation. I love them. Where they
What have
just
they done now?
What they have done now, all of those TikTok teens, they bought fake tickets to Trump's rally, and then they didn't show
Oh,
up.
I heard about this.
They didn't show up. Look at this. It's all empty. And what's really funny about this thing is that Trump was really, really concerned with the optics, right? He did not want to go into South Carolina or North Carolina, I don't remember, because they keep the social distancing. So he was really worried about the optics. But so these guys bought all the tickets. The campaign thought that there are going to be hundreds of thousands of people there, that they had to put more security in. And they put up like screens and, getting ready for like a huge crowd. And then he walks in, there's nobody. It's like 6,000 people in the center.
So I have mixed feelings about this. All right. So I will tell you, the first thing is, I think that in the scale or the scope of protest, it's a pretty cool way to protest.
It's fantastic.
Right? Like,
it's like
you
right
got to
where it
give them
hurts.
credit, right? You got to give them, if you just step back and go, I can respect the gamesmanship, right?
It's fun. And you know what's really funny? None of them, like, it's all kids, teenagers that can't vote. So they're all, and I'm like, who organized that on TikTok? It was TikTok and K-pop fans. So it's a Korean band.
Pop, yeah.
Right? And
So
I was like,
here's-
how did they organize that on TikTok? That's what I'm
So
curious.
again, that's
Right?
where, this is where the theme that I've said of like, I admire how young people, again, we love to complain about young people,
Yeah.
right? But this is another example of how they care about issues and you cannot accuse this generation of being apathetic, which is
Yep.
one of the most common complaints that often gets lobbed at young people, is that they're apathetic. You go, that took effort. And whether you agree with them doing it or not, you cannot deny it took effort. They're not apathetic. And so I'm like, at least recognize that in them and don't complain about them in that way. Now, if you want to swing over to the other side of it and say it was inappropriate or what, okay, we can have a conversation about that. But I think still it was peaceful.
Yep.
It was nonviolent.
Yep.
And, and it showed that they're not apathetic. So I keep trying with all of this stuff, rather than getting sucked into the pure politics of it, to look at the human behavior side of it and try to recognize, again, why are people doing these things, trying to understand people rather than just immediately rush to judge people,
And you know what's beautiful about this one? They knew exactly where to hit, right? Like, they knew it's all about optics, right? So there's not much that you need to do. You just need to change the optics of what's going on, and that will send a statement.
So here's the part I don't get about that, though. Okay, so you rig a system that exists that someone else created to sabotage an event, right? To make a political statement or a social statement. I'm like,
Wait.
okay,
Why
so you got
sabotage?
some attention for doing it,
Why sabotage?
right? Huh?
Why
Sabotage, like to
No,
to
why?
kind of
Why?
ruin it,
Why?
or
Why do you say sabotage?
well, because what they really did, so the president has demonstrated that he can draw significant crowds. It's not like the people that were at that event were the only people that follow him. Like, oh yeah, come on, Ifat. He's
No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So the
So-
6,000 out of the 6,000 that joined, right, that actually showed up to that, what you're saying,
Yep.
out of the 6,200 that showed up, you're saying not all of them are following him? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that more people would have come to the event than did if they could have got a ticket, but they couldn't get a ticket because the others took the tickets, right?
I don't know if it was completely sold out.
Oh, it had to
don't
be
know.
if they set up an outside staging area.
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. Actually, let's say, I don't know.
They wouldn't have set up an outside staging area
they
for
always do.
overflow
No,
if
they
there
always
were
do.
seats available inside.
They always,
So that's the whole. So what the people did is they sucked up all the tickets and made them think there were so many tickets that they needed an overflow area, right? Which means there were people that couldn't go who would have genuinely wanted to go because they couldn't get a ticket, because those tickets were being held by people who didn't intend to go. You understand?
I understand. I don't know if it was sold out, but I'm looking.
So what I'm just saying is, so what they didn't ultimately change is the fact that he has people aligned with him. They just prevented them from being able to see him that day. So like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to like play a trick on someone and like kind of, you know, wow, we pulled a fast one on you, but it doesn't change the fact that he has a significant amount of people that still follow him and agree with him and that would have been there if they could have got the tickets.
Okay, so here's an interesting article in The Atlantic that says that actually the reason why it wasn't filled wasn't just because of that, but like, turns out Oklahomans might care more about their own health than the president does. The president held this rally as something more than a return to the campaign, right? It was packed indoor arena, and most people did not want to be in a packed indoor arena. Praising. So that's, you know, so there's a lot of things that are going on here, not necessarily just the TikTok stuff.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. He didn't start, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's interesting. I think what I like about this story is that, like you said at the beginning, they care about topics, they take action about the stuff that they care about, and they use the tools that they know that are available to them to, you know, practice their beliefs. So that's that is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the El Presidente, right? Tomorrow, Bolton's book is coming out. That Trump actually sued Bolton to make sure that it's not going to come out, but it is coming out. It's already #1 in Amazon sales. So the book is already #1 best-selling on Amazon before it was released. It's releasing tomorrow. And what's really funny is that there are already pirated versions of it online. So even if Trump succeeds in, there we go. Even if Trump succeeds in, you know, try not to release it, people already bought it, but it's already available online. This book, The Room Where It Happened. This is the book that's coming out tomorrow.
All right, I'm not going to go deep down this because you know I don't really like getting into the political stuff too much, but here's what I'm going to say. John Bolton can go pound sand as far as I'm concerned. I feel like, this guy, he's willing to let all this dirt out come now, right? And he's like, right? Where were you when there was a process that was actually examining the stuff that you're saying that was inappropriate now in your book? He refused. He said before, if I get subpoenaed, I won't go. Then he changed his tune at the last minute, and then they didn't take advantage of it. But still, he could have been leaking this stuff then if he was willing to put it in a book. He could have been bringing it up then and made a difference, and he didn't do it. So to me, looks to me, you want to talk about optics, to me, it's all about just making money. Like I'm like, he may have very valid points. He may bring up very
so my question, right? So my question to you is, and I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know. But the question is, if you're in a position, a political position, do you have to comply with whatever the president says, and you cannot act on it while you occupy that position? You have to get out and then speak at it. Do you know what I mean?
That's a great question, Ifat, but he was out back when they were doing the impeachment process, and he could have shared this stuff then. He was out, and he didn't. He held it, and he held it, and he held it until after it was all done, and then I was like, oh, I just happened to be writing a book. I'm like, oh. Bleh, bleh.
Those advisors, right? Hey, don't talk about this. Write a book, and then, you know, go on a speaking tour.
Come on.
Yeah.
You know, so again, to me, this is where I'm like, this is why I try to stay away from politics stuff, because I'm like, at the end of the day, none of it's going to make any difference. We've already had multiple books get written that talk about the president's bad behavior. No one seems to really care. The people who don't like him care because it gives them a reason to be outraged and rail about him, but nothing happens. And the people who like him, they're not going to change their opinion about him. Nothing happens. So either way, nothing happens. What does it matter?
Well, you know, maybe it hasn't happened yet, but maybe now the ground is ready for things to change. So I don't know.
Maybe,
especially
but
before November, right? Like maybe it will affect the election. I don't know.
that's what you come down to, right? It's like all you have your constitutional right to vote,
Yeah.
exercise it, let the
Yeah.
voting speak for itself, I
Yeah.
guess.
So maybe
know?
if you read the book, it changes anything. I don't know.
That's what I mean. It just seems like we live in an age where people have decided what side they're on, and nothing is going to change that. That's the sad thing, I think, about where our culture is at, is you identify with one team or the other, and nothing is going to make you switch. You're going to hold to it no matter what. And so it's like, again, like,
So
facts
you know,
don't matter.
so yeah, there's a lot of feelings going on. But you know what? Maybe, I mean, things are changing. We are having conversations.
They are,
People,
and they're
you know,
not changing because of books, right? They're changing because of people doing things.
Yes,
So-
but maybe some of it we have more time to read now because of Corona.
That is true. It's good.
You know,
we do it.
and
Time
so-
to read now.
I mean, people are changing their behavior because they are stuck at home, because conversations aren't happening, because of, like, you know, in the last, 2 months, there was such a huge change in so many conversations. And the elections are coming up. So I have to believe that, you know, this is perfect, like the perfect storm, right? Everything is happening together, and hopefully it will change for the better. And we're not just going to forget.
My most sincere wish is that, like, things will change for the better, and that all human beings will, you know, be treated with greater compassion and dignity. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
John Lennon.
Always
So
what I
let's
wish.
finish with an MBA. How's that?
an
MBA. MBA is changing. Business schools begin to revamp the ABA because last year, not even this year, last year, not enough people signed up to an MBA program. So now they are changing them to focus on entrepreneurship and leadership, which is really, really interesting.
Interesting.
Right? Especially for you. Yeah, and they're bringing this a little bit online. So fascinating things. They're changing. We haven't done that. I'm just gonna do it now, Paul.
Changing lens.
We'll work on that for tomorrow.
Work on it. I have to
We'll
train
work on it
more.
for tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going to talk to you about the only funnel simulating tool. So for all of you marketers out there who are thinking of, I need a funnel. What is the funnel? Why simulate a funnel? Why even bother with that word or this process? There is a tool that will make it easier for you to consider, to be like, okay, do I need it? Do I not need it? Should I invest in it? How much time, planning, numbers, all that jazz that I geek out over and that drives Paul insane. So that's our fun for tomorrow. We're going to talk about this app. It is an app. It's a website and app
So
called Geru.
browser-based, right? Yeah.
Browser-based, yeah. It's called Geru. So if you are considering coming online, building funnels, looking at funnels, kind of trying to figure out what to do and how to do it and how it works, tomorrow is the show for you. 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Me and Paul going like this. You can't see Paul, but I'm going to bring him in so you can see 11 a.m.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Stay. Look, I was grumpy today, and I was very cynical, and I'm going to get over that, and I'm going to be more optimistic tomorrow, and it's going to be awesome. So
I think you're living up to your Larry name. That's what's happening here. See you tomorrow.
Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, come back and spend more time with us. You could be on the broadcast sharing your thoughts. We hang out live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern at www.bethenaked.com/live.